I get a lot of messages discussing the archons, feedback from the audience, people seeing evidence of archonic behavior in human society today, taken off like no other. They look up the subject. Some of them are finding my work. I think some of the most obvious examples of archonic mind hijack, it's those people that are bearing false witness against their neighbor. Not even just their neighbor, people across the street. See, how do people think they know what people are really thinking, planning, feeling, that live across the world if they don't even know their neighbor? And the hypocrisy. They don't want to be judged. There are people that have been involved in the liberty movement, at least in the past, Ron Paul movement. They don't want to be called domestic terrorists. They don't appreciate being called radicals by the U.S. government. Do they cause a near riot when it's done to innocent immigrants when they know their own government has gone into Syria and destabilized some of these regions? Absolutely not. Bearing false witness. People say, oh, these areas are being overrun by immigrants. And a lot of it is fear. Articles that are fearing that some of these areas are going to be overridden. Whatever your take on the story is, only to find that no, that area is actually mostly white. There are some areas that are plagued with crime caused by some minority groups in this country. Does that represent the entirety of the United States? And I've lived in Dallas. I've lived in Portland. I've lived in Kansas City. I've lived in Seattle, Washington. I've lived in Costilla County, Colorado. I've lived in other places. And most of the places that I've lived in, where I am now, and Portland, they've been mostly white. And I'm fine with that. But that is not the same thing. That is not the same thing as a white genocide. People literally being exterminated when you actually have a real brown genocide going on. Bearing false witness against your neighbor and trying to encourage other people to do the same. And that's what makes it worse. So those that are involved in public speaking, those that are involved in the media, those that are involved in influencing others, they need to be the most responsible because they can influence others to take action. Just like back in the day, there were people concerned. There were people concerned that when there was a wave of satanic ritual killings by fans of certain metal groups, they were blaming the metal groups, which isn't entirely fair, but they were noticing a pattern during certain years where a certain amount of them were really into certain songs by certain groups that'll be unnamed. And so why put yourself in a situation unnecessarily to be blamed and associated with those that commit criminal acts and deeds? And a lot of people right now that have been dabbling in real fake news, sensational headlines, demonizing people, they're not thinking, wait a minute, what if the spiritual warfare is directed against me to keep my soul in this matrix? People that talk about, are we in a matrix? Okay, are we in a matrix? Yes, we're in a matrix. And we're going to be talking more about this matrix that we are in on this channel. Subscribe if you're new. But how do we get out of this matrix once you realize you're in the matrix? You think you can get outside the matrix by just realizing, oh my God, I'm in a matrix. Just by osmosis and becoming aware you're in the matrix, that you step out of your matrix-like programming. No. You need to step outside of your matrix-like programming. What is core, fundamental matrix programming? Illusions of separation. Okay. There is you and your identification with your white, black, Hispanic, Arabic, Middle Eastern, Asian, other. Native American even. And your position or feeling of being superior or inferior. And it is a very elaborate program. Now with regards to bearing false witness, the other flip of the coin, and it's something that we all may learn to have to learn to deal with at some point in our lives. How to not overreact when people bear false witness against us. Now, what does it feel like to be called a terrorist? Tell me. Do you know what it feels like? Do you know what it feels like to be called white genocide? Do you know what it feels like to see somebody file a false police report? Do you know what it feels like to be viewed a certain way, a conspiracy theorist, and how people judge that? See, it doesn't feel very good to have it done, but to respond and do the same to the other, it gives the Archons what they want, which is a fight. To get you going, to get you lit up. Oh, look, aren't you offended? Oh, you've been attacked. Oh, your freedom's been threatened. And I said in a previous video, I believe a lot of things happen for a reason. I'm seeing more of that, just more confirmation of that in my recent life. Problems with the vehicle? Oh, time to reground. Time to do dozens to hundreds of videos. And use this studio space that I have now off the grid more than I've ever used it before. Just rock it while I can. If you got it, use it, as they say. Well, I might as well do that. Well, I still have my youth and my health. I'm going to share what's on my mind, body, and spirit. I'm going to share my emotions. I'm not going to worry about a perfect production. I'm going to keep it real. At the same time, I faced some unfortunate news recently, and I'm not going to get into it. But when it is time to get into it, it's going to be one hell of a story. But one thing that I've learned, people that have come against me with a sword, they've fallen on that sword. I've seen a lot of plans to sabotage aspects of my life, and just seen a monkey wrench get thrown in the dirt bike from hell that they're riding on, trying to drive over my dreams. Like a scene out of Karate Kid, just Cobra Kai, just over the radio, off in the distance. And sometimes we go through things only to realize that, like Rocky said, that famous quote from his recent movie that's been repeated like a meme, it's not how hard you hit, it's how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. Keep moving forward. We talk about psychic attacks, we talk about things of that nature. There's even psychic warfare, and responding to that, just, and then they're just not even responding to it, period. People talk about don't feed the trolls, right? Where's that come from? What are they talking about? Don't feed the trolls. What do they mean, feed? It's about feeding into that, giving them what they want. I look at patterns also when, waves of negative comments come my direction. It comes in a wave, and it drops off literally for days to weeks. And it's almost as if, these people are acting as if they're animated and on autopilot and programmed to act in a coordinated manner. And bearing false witness and throwing accusations and insults in order to distract. And ultimately, we have to realize that some of these things, when people bear false witness against us to distract us from our path or to cause some chaos in our life, maybe at a critical period, maybe the most critical period in our life, maybe something else very positive is taking place. Maybe the angels are literally intervening in another aspect of our life. And so almost the demons in our world, they want to come around whoosh, with their whip, whoosh, their baton, and strike when we're not looking, when we're experiencing or about to experience something positive. That pretty much describes something that I'm not fully describing to you in detail, but I will in the future, once the issue is resolved. And I'm looking at this going, this isn't by accident, and I'm certainly no victim. This bearing false witness is there to show me also that I can deal with things like this. And that those that do certain things do so, unfortunately for them, without realizing that there's consequences for their actions. When one bears false witness against another, there are consequences for their actions. And I specifically recall giving the spiritual warning to a very specific person in 2016. And discussing the idea of a soul being locked into this kind of a matrix to a person that talks about what is this matrix. When people bear false witness against whole groups of people passing judgment, that's the kind of thing that locks us in this place. And that's the agenda of the Archons of this world. I'm going to come back with more on this topic. Subscribe if you're new. Also support my on-demand channel, all new, but it's a way you can ship in a few dollars a month for the work that I do here, also for free, outsidethebox.vhx.tv. I'm Alex Ansary, signing off for March 24th, 2017.